Hello, welcome to The Chef Life Presents. I am G. I am the writer of the blog. In this first video we are going to be going over one method of cleaning a salmon. Now cleaning any round fish, there's a couple of ways that it can be done. My colleague prefers this method. The first thing that he does is use a strong knife to make an incision right above the dorsal fin. He's going to put it through the fish, arriving above the spine but underneath the ribs. He uses a sturdy knife because you're cutting through bones, so it does require a bit of force. You can see now that he has switched to a different knife that is a longer blade. This is just because salmon is a large round fish and you need the extra length in the blade. The first thing he does is work his knife from the middle to the tail. The back of your knife should click along the spine. The cutting edge of your knife should be facing slightly down. If you are facing too far down, you'll feel it. It will go into the spine, and then you really have to push, and you'll go right through the spine. That's not good. So now he has turned the knife around and cut back towards the head. And earlier you just saw him checking the closeness of his cut. You want to leave as much meat on the fillet as possible. What you're seeing now is the remnants of the inside of the fish. When it comes to the restaurant, it is drawn, which means that its entrails have been removed, so that is just the lining that is left on the fish. Now you want to use every single piece that you possibly can whenever you have anything in the restaurant. So you're just grab a spoon, run it along where that flesh was left. You can use that for making stuffing for ravioli, or you can make salmon tartare, as long as you do not use the belly meat. That's too fat and will not be pleasant to eat. Next, my colleague is removing the head of the fish. It could be used in stock or soup or sauce, but it's very fatty. There was a Guyanese girl in my culinary program, and she took home all the heads of the fish that we worked with so that she could make one of the traditional dishes of Ghana that is, I'm told, quite oily but quite delicious. So my colleague just flipped the fish over so that the spine is facing him. When you're working with round fish, you always want to keep the dorsal fin pointing toward you. It's the most effective way to manipulate the fish so that it's efficient to work with. Again, he used that sturdy boning knife to make the first incision, and he has switched. You can see the blade is significantly longer for this knife. He's making his way, getting his knife positioned correctly. Now he's ready to cut. This time, just because it's more comfortable, he's cutting from the middle of the back towards where the head of the fish once was. Whether you go always from the middle to the tail or always from the middle to the head, doesn't much matter. And there you can see he's checking the accuracy of his cut and resetting his knife to finish making the cut to remove the fillet. So what is left after he removes this is basically the carcass. This can be used in making a stock called fish fumet if you use white wine in the stock. But before you do that, you're going to want to make sure that you, again, just rub that spoon along and remove any of that extra flesh. The bones can also be used in making a sauce, or just immediately flavoring a soup, as long as it's removed before service. And there you are. Those are the two fillets that we've removed. No matter how good a job you do in removing the fillets, there's always extra cleaning to be done. The first thing we're going to do is remove any of the belly fat, as well as any fins. The fins have cartilage around it, so they'd be very tough if you were to cook it. It's important you get not only the fin but also the cartilage. And that pretty much is scrap. Again, I suppose you could throw it in a stock, but it's just going to make things pretty oily, and you're not going to get a whole lot more flavor out of it. You probably end up just losing liquid in trying to clean it. So in order to remove the ribs, you just grab onto the bones there, and you want to make long cuts with your knife. You don't want to make short back and forth, but long, smooth cuts. You also, again, want to make sure you're leaving as much flesh on the fish as possible, so when you make that cut, you just make the knife follow those rib bones towards the outside of the fish until you get in contact with the skin. There you can see it, that white bit that you saw when he tugged at the ribs. And my colleague's just going to turn the fish around so that he has a better purchase for making the cut through the skin. Skin is the toughest part of working with fish. It is naturally slimy. That's why he uses a rag. You can also use a paper towel to stop it from moving around the board, and it's also tough to cut through. Now, running along the top of the fish, there is a channel of fat that can be pretty easily removed just by running your finger in between the fat and the flesh. And my colleague here is cutting through the skin in order to get the entire thing removed. It just gives a better shape to the fish and also makes it more enjoyable to eat. And there's Chef coming by just to give him a few pointers. It's really nice to be working in a restaurant where the chef is very much interested in teaching all of us all of his tricks, and beyond that, everybody that's there really wants to learn all the tricks that he has. So next is a process that is removing the pin bones. The pin bones are the top section of the ribs. So from the spine, if you're looking at the side of the fish, spine down, those are the belly ribs that we just removed, and the ones at the top, that's where all the flesh is. So just grab yourself a pair of needle nose pliers, or you can use tweezers, and you'll see, you can feel them if you run your fingers or your hand back from the head towards the tail. It should just poke out. Just grab the top, give them a good tug, make sure you get all of them, go over it a couple of times. Now, like I said earlier, doesn't matter who it is, no matter who cleans the fillet, takes the fillet off of the spine, there's always going to be little bits of cartilage left. So that's what you're seeing right now. That cartilage connects the flesh to the spine, and it's important to take it off because it does tend to be a little bit tough and the flavor is not fantastic. People, when they're eating fish, are expecting this nice, soft experience, so you want to give as much as you can to them. The cartilage is particularly well developed towards the tail piece. You can see it runs right down the middle. So you may actually have to make a little cut to get that out. The patch of skin that has some discoloration that my colleague was just pointing at, that is actually signs of bruising. That could have been something that happened while the fish was alive at sea, or it could have been something that happened during the processing and shipping of the fish. It's not going to affect the final product too much. It is just discoloration. You won't be able to tell when it's cooked, and unless if it's a very deep bruise from something hitting it quite hard, it doesn't change the texture at all. So the next steps would be just to portion your fillets, make it about 7 ounces if you use a scale, or 2 to 3 inches wide if you don't. Thank you for watching.